Good evening, everyone. This is Mitch. Hope you all are enjoying your Wednesday so far and having a great night. I got you a big update on what's going on with this winter weather that's going on right now and the major winter storm that really will begin to unfold for the Ohio Valley tomorrow into the Northeast as we get into Friday. And the Northeast really has a chance to see a significant winter storm. This isn't an all-snow event like most of the time y'all are used to. Not all the time, but a lot of times you are. There's going to be a lot of sleet and a lot of ice in the Northeast also. So tail end of this video, I'm going to break down you guys very, very good here. So if you're in the Northeast and watching this, feel free to go on and skip ahead. I do not blame you one bit. But I appreciate all the amazing support in the comments. These videos have been very long. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. They've been very tiring, and it takes a lot of effort. You know, you get to rambling in these videos and trying to break down each individual area. You know, before you know it, you're about 15, 20 minutes deep, and you hadn't even gotten close to the end. So thank you all for the amazing support. So if you guys have not subscribed, definitely consider doing that. I've been making 2 videos a day, trying to keep y'all updated. So that when you hit that subscribe button, it goes a long ways, guys. It really does. Like the video if you like it. Promise you these videos will get much more appealing in the future. I really do. I promise you that. So thank you all for the support. If you guys got anything I can pray about, please put it in the comments below. It gives me an opportunity to pray over it. It gives others the opportunity to pray over your situation too. So let's get rocking and rolling here. Winter storm warnings in the pink. Winter weather advisories in this shade of purplish blue, whatever you want to call this. These are winter storm watches. You got this winter storm watch right up here in a few counties of Pennsylvania also, and even in Maryland where there's some higher elevations right here where they're worried about some icing right in here. Flood watch is still up. So a big impactful event going on right here. This is the storm in general. You got the Arctic boundary that is sagged down. It's really just kind of stalling out. It's not really stalling out. It's slowing down. So what's happening here is all these clouds, that is a ton of moisture surging the Arctic boundary, low pressure developing, and convective explosions are going on when you have all the cold air. You've got temperatures in the 20s, but you still have a lot of convective in nature moisture. So you have that thunder and lightning exploding in Arkansas earlier today. It's been very impressive. It really has. You look at the radar, what's going on right now. The heaviest moisture right now is falling in southern sections of Illinois. This is part of this first system. The first of 2 systems that will begin to continue to move into areas of the Ohio Valley. Maybe Cincinnati will see a little bit of winter weather a little bit later here in the next few hours. But this will fizzle out. It will lose some of its steam. In fact, it already has. This is the same area of moisture that was producing a ton of lightning and thunder with sleet, which is still falling in portions of Arkansas. Obviously, this is out of visibility of the St. Louis radar, but you still got reports of snow. Even, I don't know if that's accurate, but you have some freezing rain and sleet falling in Dallas, and this will get re-amped up again later tonight from Dallas to Oklahoma, Tulsa, Oklahoma City. You guys will get into more ice overnight. So let's look at the ambient weather. It's crazy. Boston almost hit 70 degrees. They broke their record high for today. They hit 69 degrees. Other areas around Boston got into the 60s. Southern New England got well into the 60s. But this Arctic boundary is going to cool y'all down overnight into tomorrow, and then it'll set the stage for the winter storm for Friday. But very warm into the southeast. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to know what this Arctic boundary is. What's going to be interesting tomorrow is you're going to have some cold air that oozes kind of on the eastern side of the Appalachian Mountains right here. Is what we call cold air damming. So North Carolina, for example, tomorrow, certain parts of the state are going to be very cold, while certain parts of South Carolina is going to be very warm. Be interesting cold air damming setup tomorrow. So let's get going into the meat of this video. We're going to take a look, as y'all know, Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, places like that first, and we're going to work our way through the later future of this storm. So we're going to take a look at the NAM. Break down what the NAM's showing, break down what the National Weather Service is showing, and really get going through here, because I want to mention, guys, that NAM, all these models are showing different things, but we're going to take a look at the NAM as far as precip types. So we'll start off here later this evening for the south central U.S. Moisture gets re-amped up again, so we're freezing it here about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning tonight. More freezing rain breaking out in areas of Dallas, Fort Worth. Sleet a little bit to the north of the city, but maybe even some sleet mixing in the city. Light moisture. It's not going to add up much, but you get under maybe a heavier band, and it does. You get into Tulsa, Oklahoma City. An area of sleet will likely move in late tonight, and then you're getting into tomorrow morning into a little bit, you know, probably when you're waking up. Sleet, freezing rain continuing to fall in areas of Dallas and just this whole entire area of Texas right here. This will begin to intensify in areas of southeast Oklahoma and eastern Oklahoma in general, where the moisture will become basically you'll get more heavier rates on what's going on here, and then the ice storm will continue to intensify and kind of reamp itself. Where areas that saw a lot of sleet today in Arkansas might see more of the weight and freezing rain tomorrow morning as more warm air advection moves into the upper levels of the atmosphere and really melts that snow that falls into a layer in the atmosphere, and then it refreezes on the surface as rain. It looks like rain, but it's freezing rain. But this next area of moisture will be much further north. And so therefore, that low pressure began to develop. That means, like I said, more just freezing rain in northern Arkansas and southeast Oklahoma, where I think the ice storm part of this will really begin to get cranked up. Southeast Missouri, ice storm. But then you get into St. Louis, you might get into more sleet, a little bit of freezing rain, but this continues to move through. We're getting into later in the afternoon. This begins to wrap up for Texas and then southeast Oklahoma, and a little bit of freezing rain kind of, maybe throughout the afternoon and evening, but it begins to wrap up in these areas, and then this gets into the Ohio Valley as we're working our way here. But then, you look at the NAM as far as snowfall totals, not much snow in this part of the storm, not much at all. Maybe throughout the next few hours, maybe a couple inches of snow in areas of Missouri. But just not much snow with this. Maybe an inch of snow into Kansas City. But you look at the sleet. It's very interesting. There's already been a lot of sleet that's already fell. There's going to probably be a good little bit more of sleet that falls into tomorrow morning, especially for southern Missouri. Now, 2 inches of sleet, I don't know about that. But I tell you what, so a lot of sleet's already fell in this area today. But, the thing about sleet is it doesn't look a lot on the ground because it's so small, and then it gets in all the crevices and the grass blades and all that. So sleet looks weird when it's laying on the ground because it's not on the trees. You're not seeing anything on the trees, but sleet can be very dangerous on the roads. But another area of sleet will move in overnight, and you could get a dusting, maybe a half an inch of sleet in Oklahoma, maybe a tenth of an inch of sleet overnight, enough to put a glaze on all the elevated surfaces in Dallas, Fort Worth, especially northwest of the city, and then more sleet moving into. This will mix with freezing rain also. In fact, let's go on and look at the freezing rain for this area. And nasty freezing rain showing up per the latest NAM 3 km, where more ice will accumulate, probably another quarter to maybe half inch of ice. The freezing rain part of this really gets cranked up tonight for Arkansas. So a glaze, another glaze. This is when the freezing rain becomes a big deal for Dallas-Fort Worth, as we get into later this evening, into overnight, where y'all could get a 10th to a 20th of an inch of ice. It's very possible. So we got to watch out. The NAM wants to bring some significant ice even into areas of northwest Tennessee, western Kentucky, and then southeast Missouri. But I do think you'll see anywhere from probably a 10th to a quarter inch of ice in these regions. I meant to show you guys the National Weather Service. So let's go on and look at this. As far as the National Weather Service, what it's showing between now and this weekend, which really all this falls tomorrow. It likes the same idea as the NAM down this region, but it's really showing a lot of significant freezing rain to fall in Arkansas starting tomorrow morning into tomorrow during the day, especially overnight into tomorrow morning into the first part of the day tomorrow. Freezing rain begins to become a really big issue for these areas right into here. So be careful. So let's go on and switch it to the Ohio Valley. And I feel like this is showing up very well. We're going to freeze it up right here. This is for around 6, 7 p.m. You switch it and you compare this to the radar and what it looks like in this region, and it matches up pretty well. This is all sleet, maybe a little bit of snow mix, but you have a lot of sleet falling just south of St. Louis, which is right here, and just snow just north of the city. Now, the NAM has the right idea as far as where the precipitation is sitting. The NAM might be a little too far north, but I feel like it's doing a decent job. It's showing you where the sleet is, which is the orange, the snow, which is the blue, and it has the right idea as far as that cutoff. Maybe it has the sleet a little bit too far north. But this will continue to move through, and watch as it fizzles out overnight tonight. And I think you might see a little bit of snow break out, some light snow break out over the Ohio Valley or late tonight into the wee hours in the morning. Then we're getting into tomorrow morning. The NAM wants to show freezing rain all the way down to Kentucky. I don't know about that, but we'll certainly see how this plays out. The NAM definitely wants a little bit of freezing rain all the way into central Kentucky, central West Virginia, even some freezing rain starting to inch into areas of Virginia into them higher elevations and the valleys into Virginia. But this is the meat of the storm moving in. The low pressure for the Ohio Valley tracks so far north, it really brings a lot of warm air at the surface. So areas of southern Illinois might switch to rain. I think the majority of the storm in southern Indiana could be all rain. I think the majority of the storm for southern Ohio could be all rain. But just north and the central areas of those states I just mentioned, a wintry mix of everything. Cincinnati stays mostly rain, but then you get into Dayton. Dayton could see a decent bit of ice, nothing that's too crazy. But then you get into areas like Cleveland. You could get a burst of heavier snow, but then it quickly switches to a mix of sleet and freezing rain. So remember, guys, it's hard to mention every single city in every single state. So feel free to put in the comments what state or what city you want to mention. But definitely don't say, what about Ohio? Ohio is a pretty big state, so I'm just using it as an example. Some people do that in the comments. It's not a diss on anybody. But if you come in the comments and say, what about Pennsylvania? What about Ohio? Man, that's a pretty large state. And in a situation like that, you have a lot different frozen precipitation falling in whatever geographical region you are in the state. But I really think the southern areas of Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, I think y'all are going to get spared with this. I think maybe that first push of moisture might put a little bit of wintry precipitation in the area, but I think y'all will be mostly rain. Y'all might start off as some freezing rain in Pittsburgh, but I think y'all will switch to rain eventually. And then the low pressure begins to transfer, and then as you're getting into, and I'm sorry, I've not been mentioning the time, but this will be basically all for tomorrow, late morning into tomorrow afternoon, evening, and then overnight, Thursday into Friday for the Ohio Valley. So I'll freeze it here. This is really getting into about 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. You have areas though in Ohio that were just all freezing rain now starting to mix with rain, and then maybe some backside snow with this. But it's a big question on where that warm air advection, where that warm nose is going to set up here. And I think this is really going to prevent a big winter weather event for the Ohio Valley in general here. But the snowfall has kind of shifted a little further north. I think southern areas of Michigan could see a few inches of snow, in southern areas of Indiana a few inches of snow, and then Chicago, per the latest NAM, a few inches of snow is definitely possible. You look at the sleet fall, how much sleet could fall. Remember, the sleet's normally overdone, but it wants to put a lot of sleet. It's got definitely a jackpot area as far as the Ohio Valley of northern Ohio, where I think maybe a 1/4 inch to maybe 3/4 of an inch of sleet is certainly possible in that area with some heavier bands. But freezing rain, it likes Ohio too, which it always has in the life of the storm. And anybody in the Ohio Valley, it's really like the idea of Ohio seeing a decent icing event. So be careful with the ice in Ohio. National Weather Service, 5 inches now showing up in Chicago. So you're pulling for that, getting close to that 1/2 foot range. Maybe some lake effect snow could enhance this a little bit. We'll watch that there. The whole northern half of an Illinois, a few inches of snow possible. Same thing with Indiana, and then maybe a couple inches of snow into Cleveland as we watch this unfold. But let's go on and talk about the Northeast, and then we'll wrap up this video, and hopefully this will be the first video, a night video that doesn't last for 25-30 minutes here. Here we go. We're getting into tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, not a whole lot going on. The NAM wants to put a little bit of freezing rain in the higher elevations of Virginia and West Virginia. That fizzles away. And then here comes the big push of moisture as we get into late tomorrow evening, getting into tomorrow night. The NAM wants to start off as freezing rain in Washington, D.C., most of Maryland, a little bit of sleet in northern Maryland. And I'm just not sold on that yet. But even if it does freezing rain for a few hours, in these sections right in here that I just mentioned, like Washington, D.C. and northern VA, I don't think it's going to amount to much. And I think y'all will switch to rain. And I think just because y'all been so warm, I think that's going to prevent I don't think it's going to prevent, if it was to occur, any ice accumulations. But I do think it would definitely slow the process of ice accumulating on things because of warm surfaces. But you look at the NAM, this really starts off as a big sleet bomb for Pennsylvania. And then these areas right into here could stay freezing rain for the duration of the event. And just areas just east of Pittsburgh could really see some nasty ice. But this continues. You're getting into early Friday morning. I'm talking about 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. It starts off as sleet per the latest NAM. But the NAM could definitely be overdoing the warm nose. NAM actually does a pretty good job of the warm nose, and a lot of times is accurate. So we have to watch because the NAM is on an island as far as the mid-levels are concerned with this warm air. When I say mid-levels, I'm talking about the temperatures are above our heads, like several thousand feet up in the air where that warm nose sits that melts those snowflakes into sleet and then back into rain, and then it prevents everything falling as snow or everything falling as sleet, and it might be all ice. So I'll break down a sounding of what I'm trying to explain here in a second. But this moves in. You're getting into about 5, 6 a.m. in the morning, Friday morning. Starts off as a huge band of heavy snow in areas like Connecticut, Rhode Island, the entire state of Massachusetts. Heavy snow moving into Boston, New Hampshire, Vermont. This will be an intense frontogenesis-like band of snow, meaning warm air. It's going to be warm air advection driven, which basically means you're going to have moist profiles, and then there's not going to be really any dry air at place to basically shrink these snowflakes is what I'm trying to say without trying to be super confusing. Basically what I'm saying is it's going to be snowing potentially flakes the size of $50 in this region at the beginning of the storm, especially at the beginning. But normally when it's doing that, you can always bet that there's sleet really close by, because of that warm air advection that creates that warm nose. So you're getting into later in the morning, it's pouring snowing in Boston, pouring snowing, and then y'all switch to sleet, for example. New York City, Long Island, starts as sleet, switches to freezing rain, then potentially just rain per the latest NAM. So we have to see how that unfolds. Low pressure right here, but it wants to end y'all as just sleet in Boston. So we have to see how that's going to work out. For folks in New York State, for example, I think most of the state starts off as snow, but even y'all go to sleet potentially. I think areas like Buffalo could see several inches of snow, heavy wet snow too. This isn't just dry snow. I mean, this could be some heavy wet snow that really falls in these areas. So what is the Euro showing? I'll do, for example, how much colder the other models are. This is the Euro. Notice it stays all snow for Boston, for example. It starts it off as a brief period of snow, even into areas of New York City. A lot of freezing rain into Pennsylvania. A ton of freezing rain moves in. And it is just an all-out ice storm, according to the European, with all this freezing rain. But we'll stop this for Friday morning. There's so much going on here. Heavy snow just north of New York City. Heavy snow into Connecticut, especially the northern half of Connecticut. Heavy snow from most of Rhode Island. Heavy snow from Massachusetts. And ice starting to get into northern New Jersey. You start to get into about 6 hours later, so about midday Friday, heavy snow still falling in Boston. But by the time you get into midday, you're switching to ice in New York City, or maybe a sleet mixer, and maybe just go straight to rain. So all heavy snow. But for the entire storm, it stays all snow for areas like Boston and most of southern New England and central southern New England, or whatever geographical region, you know what I'm saying. So you look at the NAM as far as these snowfall totals. And I'll look at one more model too. Let's look at the GFS. What is the GFS showing? Well, let's go on and look at it really quick. The GFS, same situation. The GFS and the European are pretty much agreeing now that it wants to stay all snow for Boston and all snow for Massachusetts in general and northern areas of Connecticut. And even starts it off as a brief heavy burst of snow in New York City before quickly switching to sleet. And it agrees of a big-time ice storm in Pennsylvania starting as early as overnight Thursday into Friday morning for these areas. So we have to watch that. The NAM shows the idea of that warm nose. Keeps all the heaviest snow north of Boston into New Hampshire, Vermont, and the far northern counties just north of Boston. Only wants to put a few inches of snow into southern New England, into Connecticut, Rhode Island, and no snow in New York City, and hardly no snow in Pennsylvania or New Jersey. So, I feel like you have to still pay attention to the NAM. It dumps an ungodly amount of sleet on areas just south of all that heaviest snow. So it wants to put a few inches of sleet basically on southern New England. So let's hope that doesn't happen. Because everybody wants all snow. Nobody wants all the ice crap, right? I think we all can agree with that. But dumps a ton of ice on all these regions you see here. 1 to 2 inches of sleet, I think, would be possible in this kind of situation with this heavier moisture that's going to set up for the Northeast. So it's going to be a wintry mess if the NAM really comes to friction. And I think even if any model does. For freezing rain totals, the NAM wants to bring that freezing rain, that glaze, all the way into Connecticut and Rhode Island. It then brings all them significant freezing rain totals into Pennsylvania, and even wants to bring freezing rain into Maryland, Washington D.C. But I just think it's weirdly over. I think the cold air at the surface is a little too cold down here, and I think, even though I do think freezing rain will fall in these areas, I do not think it's going to add up to a whole lot. I just don't think. I could be dead wrong though. National Weather Service is leaning away from the NAM. They're pretty much treating the NAM as an outliner as far as snowfall totals, and therefore puts over a foot of snow for Boston, and heavy interior snow, widespread foot over foot totals for the interior Northeast in general. But watch out, Connecticut. Connecticut's going to be a big state where the southern shoreline could see more sleet and a little bit of freezing rain, with the northern areas of the state, for example, could see more so snow. Rhode Island, I think y'all are just going to deal with a lot of rain, unfortunately. But I do think most of Rhode Island will see a mixture of something, at least at the beginning, a few inches of snow. But look at Buffalo over here, getting into I think Buffalo could see 6 to 12 inches of snow. So, for example, for them. But, you look at the freezing rain totals from the National Weather Service. It shows that idea of some heavier freezing rain for these areas of Pennsylvania right into here. And then even the tail here of Maryland could get into over a 1/4 inch of ice, which is that ice storm criteria ice. So watch out for a little ice in eastern Pennsylvania. There's an elevated area right here showing up, and a glaze pretty much showing up everywhere. But you look at the European, over a foot of snow. It's leaning towards the National Weather Service is leaning towards the European model. Likes that area of heavier snow right into here. So one thing I'll mention, the National Weather Service in Boston still is keeping Boston at 8 to 12 inches of snow, but circles this area is a great deal of uncertainty due to all the mixing issues. So that's a big problem right there, forecast-wise. They're trying to figure out what's going to happen. But as far as these forecast soundings, I'll stop it right here. And this is for 6 a.m. Friday morning, and I'll drop a sounding right into here, just around Boston. This isn't, thank you, good old mosquito in my house. That's how warm it is in South Carolina. Humidity's rising, the mosquitoes are already coming out. So look at these DGZs down here. That is a frontogenesis band showing up here, that warm air advection, moistening up the column here. These dew points are riding the temperatures. You see this warm nose right here? This warm nose never makes it above 32 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 0 degrees Celsius, which is that 0 degrees Celsius line right here. It tries to warm, but it never gets there. In fact, it doesn't even really come close, and then the temperatures drop again, and then you're sitting at 27 degrees at the Celsius. So you are getting some heavy, wet snow right here. Flakes it's coming down. I'm talking about 1 to 2 inch per hour rates in this band easily. That's going to start off in Boston. I think you'll start off with some moderate snow and then quickly go to very, very heavy snow for a great deal of New England. I really do. I'm talking about puking snow. Those are some very moist soundings right there. Hardly no dry air until you get way, way up in the atmosphere. So, yes, that's about it, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. Be careful. This is going to be a big storm for the Northeast. The Ohio Valley, it's really tricky, but I don't think it's going to be a major storm for the Ohio Valley. But I think certain areas could certainly see significant winter precipitation. That's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all. Stay safe, and I'll talk to y'all in the morning.